Well, I'm glad to be here this afternoon with Bill Lloyd, one half of Foster and Lloyd, one of the coolest 80s country groups, and a guy who's gone on to do a tremendous amount of great pop songwriting. And Bill, how's everything in Nashville today?
Beautiful, beautiful, balmy day in
I know.
January 2016.
Yeah, it's really amazing to wind up where we are at the end of the month, that's for sure, especially with where you guys were a week ago. So
we had 8 inches of snow in my neighborhood one week ago today, and now it's like 60 degrees outside. So
funny.
But let's not talk about climate change because that's not real, is it?
It's definitely not.
So anyway, let's move on.
So, Bill, what was the first thing that got you interested in music?
Oh, well, both my parents were musical. My dad was a swing drummer, and my mom played piano, and there was always music around the house. And but I saw Ricky Nelson on the end of Ozzie and Harriet do a song, and not many years later, I got to meet James Burton, who was the guitar player, the teenage guitar player with Ricky, and
right.
I mean, that was the first kind of, like, wow, this is cool. And then, just it wasn't long after that the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan, and that was just it for. And it's I'm speaking for me and 10 million other people. I mean, that was just a moment.
Oh yeah, very much so. And I know that from reading some of the stuff that you've written that you have a great affinity for that 60s songwriting, like the.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of people when they anybody who's a musician, when they squeeze the sponge, whatever comes out, that stuff that you first loved when you were younger stays with you the longest, I think.
Right. And so, who are some of the people from that? I've seen you talk about Paul Revere and the Raiders, but who were some?
Sure, I saw them when I was in 6th grade. I saw them live, so that was kind of an impact. But my favorite stuff is all the stuff that everybody else my age loves. The Byrds, the Beatles, Bob Dylan, Buffalo Springfield, the Who, the Kinks. The Rolling Stones. I mean, it just goes on and on. I love all that stuff.
Yeah, and
Beach Boys. Yeah, I'm a big Beach Boys fan too.
Oh, absolutely. So when you got a chance, you were also pretty influenced by David Bowie. Isn't that right?
Mm-mm. No, I like Bowie. I'm a big Bowie fan, but I wasn't particularly influenced by him. I was in bands that did his songs. Suffragette City, Rebel Rebel, things like that, when you were playing high school dances and college dances and stuff. I mean, his stuff was always around, but I was not a disciple per se. Okay. I liked what he did, but no, I was not a hardcore fan.
Okay. So when did you decide that this was something you wanted to do for the rest of your life?
I don't know. I was about, 12, 13, 14, right in there where, once I got out of Little League, I figured, well, the majors were not calling. So, the baseball thing kind of played itself out really early. And and then and there was a period there where when I'm 60 years old, so, there was a period there where if you grew your hair out, it was a statement. It was like what side are you on? And for a lot of my friends, it was either, you either play sports or you play music. And
right.
I grew my hair out and played music. And, I started when I was, started playing live when I was young, but like professionally, it's 3 nights a week when I was 15. So. Wow.
When did you start writing songs?
Early, when I was a kid, and it was from seeing, the credits on the back of the Beatles records where Lennon McCartney and there would be a George Harrison song, and it's just the fact that they were a self-contained band that wrote their own songs, that was real inspirational. So real early, and I always kept a little notebook, but I was always and then started having bands that played out doing original material as early as high school, and especially college years and after. I first got out. I was in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and I first getting out of Bowling Green was me and my then songwriting partner, bandmate, moved to New York City in 1980.
Okay.
And I turned 25 up there, and we had a engineer up there who was later went on to do a whole lot of stuff. But at the time, he had been an assistant engineer on several records that we all liked. His name was Jeff Hendrickson, and he worked at a place called the Power Station. And at the Power Station, Dire Straits made Making Movies, and Springsteen did The River, and Bowie did Scary Monsters, and so there was all those records that had been done there, and his name was on all of them. And I was working in a record store, and there was a guy in there who used to come see my band, and he said, I've got an old friend who lives in New York, and he sent our tape, cassette tape, up to New York to this guy. And this guy said, listen, if you move up, I really like what you're doing. And, he's looking for projects to do. And I'll get you in the Power Station to record. And so we moved up there and it was just the two of us. But between the two of us, we played all the instruments. So we kind of did it like that. But then, at the end of 1980, we ran out of money. We missed our girlfriends. John Lennon was killed while we were there. It was horrible. And so we came home kind of reinvigorated to do something, but also slightly with our tail tucked between our legs because we went up there and nothing really big happened. It was just it was a good life experience. But after a couple of years, my friend moved back with his girlfriend, and our band broke up, and I moved to Nashville and just kind of started over. And so I moved to Nashville in '82.
Nashville and Bowling Green are not very far apart.
No, they're not. They're not at all.
You didn't have to.
So it was like, but Nashville was like a, suburb. Bowling Green was almost like a suburb. So, yeah, it was always, I had friends down here, but Nashville turned out to be a good move for me because I played in the local rock scene, but when I got a publishing deal, it was a pop publishing deal with Mary Tyler Moore. But I started writing songs with people like Randy Foster and some Chapman, people I still write songs with and know to this day, still work with, and so lifelong friends, and it was a good time back then. Nashville was a real different place.
Well, so how is it different? Tell me about what's
different. Right now, I mean, if you watch the TV show, or if you ever come through here, it's a tourist destination beyond what it ever was before. And the music business, of course, has changed a lot over the years. And what constitutes as country now is very much just basically classic rock with a twang, and with lyrics that speak to small town life and don't really grapple with anything other than that. But it's a big business, but also the music business in general has taken a real downturn in the last 15 years because of, pirating, and just availability of music for free for everybody. Everywhere can get music for free 24/7,
Right.
So it's just a different world.
Well, staying with that, when you first did move in '82, kind of, paint a picture of what that was like. Who might you run into? What might you see?
The rock scene the rock scene in Nashville was all these bands that really knew each other, and some of them kind of incorporated the country thing into what they were doing. Jason and the Scorchers was a band that actually got signed to a big label deal, EMI, and went out and toured internationally, and did pretty well, and they were like our local rock stars. And there was another healthy rock scene around that. And then there was the difference in Music Row at that time was there'd been the urban cowboy phase, and then there was a very, I hate to call it countrypolitan, but it was a very kind of big ballad singers, Lee Greenwood, Gary Morris. The women were like Barbara Mandrell. It was all very show busy. And and what happened about 86, 87, the record companies always looking for something new, which is what they still do. And delved into the publishing houses, and Steve Earle got signed out of one. The O'Kanes is a band that had some hits back then. Jamie O'Hara and Kieran Kane. They were at another publishing company. Radney and I were at another publishing company, and that's how we ended up getting our deal. Was producers heard what we were doing, and actually a friend of mine who worked at RCA wanted to know what I was doing. I was playing around town with another fellow besides Radney and a guy named Whittle Rambeau. We were called the Ever Ready Brothers, and at one point, one of the guys at RCA, some staff producer, Mark Wright, would looked at us and said, "We want to make a duo and call it Will Billy." And I said, "Hold your horses now. Will and I only written like 2 or 3 songs together, but I've got all these other songs I've written with this other guy," and that was Radney. And so we ended up, passing the tape along to them, and they got interested, and that's how our deal came about.
Wow,
and so we ended up cutting, sort of just making more hi-fi versions of the songs we had on our cassette, on our demos, and it ended up being the first album. It was just a fluke, lucky hit, Crazy Over You was a lucky hit for us. And then we followed that up with, a total of 3 albums of the greatest hits.
Right. Well, and reading the liner notes and the credits on those Foster and Lloyd albums, I mean, that was just an all-star cast in itself. I mean, you had Felix, you had Vince Gill making appearances every other song, it seemed like. I mean, there were a lot of people that played on those things.
Well, Vince played on all 3 of our albums. We'd always get him to come play some guitar. And we had people like Bernie Ledden from the Eagles, and Sam Bush, and Jerry Douglas from the bluegrass world, and John Cowan. And we had some good guest stars, and we had, but we did co-write and produce ourselves, which was something that was not typical of that time. Even some of the other edgier acts like Lyle Lovett or Steve Earle, were still produced by somebody else, and we had the reins on our own thing, so that was kind of nice.
Well, was that given to you with any trepidation, or did they know you well enough to?
They trusted us at the time, foolishly trusted us, and we held on to that for the duration. But the thing was, it played itself out. Radio kind of went off of us, and Radney wanted to do his own thing. So I started working for RCA as a talent scout for their New York division, and I got involved in a band called the Sky Kings with Rusty Young from Poco and Pat Simmons of the Doobies and John Callan from Newgrass. And that we made a record for RCA that didn't come out till last December. Finally, they released it out of the vaults. I'm talking about December of 2015. No, I'm sorry, 2014.
Right.
After 30 years or something, and then the Warner Brothers stuff that we cut later was on Rhino Handmade. So that was like the Sky Kings was one of those really cool bands, but it was sort of a misfire. It took up about 5 or 6 years of my life, and nothing really happened out of it. But I've always made my own records, which are more sort of singer-songwriter meets power pop kind of records.
Sure.
And those are the ones that I just have continued to do over the years, and I'm happy about that. I'll tell you something that happened this week. I don't know if you know who Michael Chabon is. I
was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, he picked up on Instagram. He posted about listening to one of my songs. I'm talking from my first album going back to '85, and he was listening to it, just saying how great the song was. I thought, wow, that's so nice of him. And anyway, that goes back. So I've been making those kind of records for all this time, and continue to.
So how did the solo album, that was around the same time as the first Foster and Lloyd album, so how did those two things...
I'd already had that deal in place, and I explained that to RCA, and they said, that's fine. We'll work around it. And actually, in some cases, it was a double-edged sword. In some cases, it really helped us. In some cases, it kind of hurt us. Because, I don't know, certain people don't want you to play outside the lines, and So there were certain, I guess, people who at radio stations who want to program your band, any excuse to not play something, to play something else from somebody else, they'll pick on anything. So, for me to have an outside outlet for the rock thing was definitely a hindrance in some cases, and then in other cases it was a real plus because we got reviewed in Rolling Stone and places like that where we might not have if it hadn't been for the fact that College Music Journal and all these other places were writing about my solo record.
Right.
So I think just one thing. I think it was a double-edged sword, for me to have both things going on at once.
Well, and I mean, you just exude beautiful pop melodies. I mean, some of the stuff that you write just knocks me out, and the arrangements.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
Are so unique, and so I mean, tell people a little bit about who you kind of think of when you're writing a song that might come to, who they might describe that as, or what they might bring to that.
Who do I get compared to, you mean?
Well, yeah, or who do you compare yourself to, or,
Well, man, I shoot for the stars every time, and I write, I want to write something as good as McCartney or Bacharach or Brian Wilson or Ray Davis or any of the great writers who write with soul and melody, and definitely melody is a big thing for me, but I also like lyricists. I like Jimmy Webb and Paul Simon and Joni Mitchell, and so and I'm not saying I always hit those things, but yeah, you always reach for the stars whenever you come up with a song and try to come up with something that might make somebody feel something or mean something to somebody.
Yeah,
and so yeah, I love all the whoever you think the greats are. I'd probably just put it on a checklist and go, yeah, I like them too. I really am a kind of I listen to just about everything. Don't listen to a whole lot of urban music or opera, but just about everything else I'm open to, or listen for pleasure,
Well, and over the years you've got a reputation as knowing the instruments as well as everything else. Tell me how you got involved with the Country Music Hall of Fame.
Well, that was almost like a gift. I got a call out of the blue. My name came up in a meeting for someone who might be good to help. They needed a person down there to help go through all their guitars, not just guitars, musical instruments and stuff in their archive, and have it catalog it again, recatalog it actually, because they moved from one location to another.
Right.
And so and I'm not a luthier. I'm not a guitar repairman or anything like that. I said, well, I don't know if you're going to be looking for someone who can repair all this stuff, because that's not me, but I can certainly help with the research and help you with this. And they said yes. So I was there. They said it'll probably be a year, but it ended up being 3.5. And so I wasn't planning on a full-time career with that. It was just kind of a job. But it was I was behind a desk every day, which I hadn't done it ever, except when I was a record store clerk. I'd sit behind the desk sometimes, but other than that, it was a real job. But I think I helped them out. I went make a database and put my hands on everything and get things reappraised. And one of the things I started, or I helped start, I should say, it was through committee, but I lobbied for it and got to do it, was a program called Nashville Cats.
Yeah,
which involves, me interviewing guys who are slightly out of the spotlight, who, played all the big licks on all the records and worked, a lot of them worked around-the-clock sessions playing for everybody, yet They didn't get they weren't being celebrated in any kind of way. And that was the point of it. And, of course, we've gone kind of outside the whole spotlight thing, because some of the guys, like Ray Stevens was a guy we talked with in Nashville Cats, and he was a big star, is a big star. And Dwayne Eddy is our next one. So Dwayne was a the first of the guitar stars, really.
Right.
But most of the time, I'm interviewing somebody that didn't have a spotlight on them, and I've been doing that program for 10 years now.
Well, so tell me, who are some of your favorites from that? Who were?
Oh my God! I'll tell you one of those emotional ones was the guy who played lap steel, really. With he played pedal steel too, but with Hank Williams, he was one of the Drifting Cowboys.
With Don Helms?
Don Helms, yeah. Don Helms was the guy that I got to interview, and he brought the original steel that he played with Hank. Played Cold Heart in front of the crowd, and there wasn't a dry eye in the place. It was amazing. But I've gotten to interview, all the guys from the surviving guys from the A team, people like Harold Bradley, Charlie McCoy, Bob Moore, Pig Robbins, a lot of guys. These guys worked around the clock playing on everybody's records.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people who played on the influential Blonde on Blonde record, just about everybody that played on that I've talked to at one point.
Well, and that was the subject of a whole exhibit there at the Country Music Hall of Fame.
It is. Michael Gray and Pete Finney were the curators on that, and they did a fabulous job. We did a concert last summer for the hall, and this band I have we call the Lawn Players.
Right.
Well, we've been doing that for 12 years now, and we do classic albums and play them from front to back. Now, in this case, we played songs from the accompanying album that goes with the exhibit. So there's a new album out that goes along with the exhibit that's at the Hall of Fame called Dylan Cash and the Nashville Cats.
Yeah.
So we did a show last December. December last. When was it? August or July, where we played downtown Nashville, and we had Al Cooper come down and play organ with us, and we got a bunch of great singers and backed up a lot of different people. A lot of them who played on the record, the Blonde on Blonde record, and others of that era. So
very cool. Now, you've got to just tell me two or three of the instruments that you got to hold and play that kind of sent a shockwave through you. What were some of your favorites that you happened on?
I got to open up the case and help clean. We had the dusting inside of the case, and it's a major deal anytime you do take one of these instruments out of its location. Wear gloves, you take it out of the case, and then you take it in and dust off the inner case, and then you clean up the guitar, make sure that there's no, while it's been sitting in a case, make sure there's no damage done to it at all. But I had to play Wildwood Flower on Mother Maybelle's guitar, the one that the song was written on, which is one of the first songs I ever learned how to play on guitar as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's so funny that job at the Hall of Fame was so cool because this very same week I got to play Mother Maybelle's guitar and play Wildwood Flower on it. Van Morrison was doing a show at the Ryman. He came through the archives, and I got to meet him. And it just struck me later that the other song I learned to play on guitar first was Gloria, Gloria. So there was that very same week I was getting to play the guitar that Mother Maybelle wrote Wildwood Flower on, and I got to shake Van Morrison's hand. So that was, to me, what a weird perk of having a job, right? That was something.
So how did you end up producing Carl Perkins?
Radney and I used to open for Carl quite a bit back in the late 80s. We did a bunch of shows with him. Got to know him a little bit, and he had a manager named Ken Stiltz who also managed the Judds at the time. And Ken was talking to a fellow at the booking agency about us and said, boy, the Foster Lloyd has that rockabilly sound. And the guy at the booking agency named Rick Shipp was nice enough to drop my name and said, well, you should talk to Bill Lloyd. I ended up going down and meeting Carl. I mean, well, we met before. We hung out, and, he was always such a sweetheart and treated everybody so well. But I ended up going down to his house in Jackson, hanging out with him, and doing some demos in his home studio with his sons, and that was unreal, to be staying in the guest bedroom and all knock on the door, Bill, wake up, Velda's got breakfast on, that kind of thing, and it was just so surreal to be working with him. But we ended up cutting 3 things to pitch, with a budget from RCA to do some demos, and nothing really came of it. Ken Stilps took the judge away from RCA, and Carl's deal died in the process. So that was one of those, unfortunate music biz things. A couple of the tracks showed up later, many years later, on a sampler from Bear Family out of Germany. For me, a big thing is to see the back of the CD called Carl Rocks, and it's got, produced by, of course, Sam Phillips, and it's got all the other producers, Jerry Kennedy, and all these other producers. And there's my name on there, too, so that's kind of nice,
Oh, yeah, that's a nice little list. That's a 1, 2, 3 there.
Yeah.
Were there, I mean, you're just constantly doing something. Last night you did an autism benefit. I mean, you're still doing the Nashville Cats. I mean, it seems like there's always something you're doing. Is there anything right now that's just really reaching out to you that people need to know about?
Yeah, I've always got something to talk about. Luckily, I've got something to talk about. I've got a couple projects going on. I put out an EP this last year, a song that I wrote with Tom Pearson from Cheap Trick, who worked with last night, the Autism Benefit. And it's a song called Yesterday, not to be confused with the other.
It's a great song. It's great.
Thank you. And so I've got an EP that's available on my website, BillLloydMusic.net, and it's a very kind of power pop sort of track. And I keep putting out those kind of records all the time. I've got another EP ready for this first quarter coming up here we are in 2016 already. So sometime within the next few months, I'll have another EP, and there's going to be a schedule for April 1st. There's going to be a covers record that a little label out of Arlington, Texas called Spider Pop is putting out. It's 12 songs, me doing covers of other people. Everything from Bobby Fuller 4, The Beatles, Love and Spoonful, The Hollies, The Byrds, Let's Active and the DBs and Reckless Eric, things like that too. I mean, it's just 12 songs, and it's called Loitering, spelled L-O-O-I-D, hyphen E-R-I-N-G, and it's just my version of all these songs that meant something to me, and that's coming out April 1st. And then I mentioned Tom from Cheap Trick. Tom and a guy named Adam Schoenfeld and I have been writing songs together, and we just got out of the studio and had cut 4 songs, and we got another 4 songs ready to go. So hopefully we'll go back in before everybody gets busy and cut the other 4. And so we have kind of an imaginary band there that we're not sure what we'll do with, because Tom's got his Rock and Roll Hall of Fame band, and I've got my own records. It may end up being an Adam project, I don't know, but right now we're treating it like it's an imaginary band, and we're just writing all the songs and having fun with it.
Well, you also you've done some performances with Cheap Trick, haven't you?
Yeah, I was lucky to get involved with those guys because of the Long Players. I think Tom thought of me when they were learning Sgt. Pepper to go play for an anniversary at the Hollywood Bowl, and the Long Players had already done Sgt. Pepper, and he goes, "Well, can you kind of come in and help us go through these things? We'll need another guitar player, singer anyway, to kind of help do it." And so I said, "Are you kidding?" Of course, and while I was working with the guys, I was singing some harmony. I remember with Robin doing something, and I was playing acoustic, and he was singing, and he just stopped me. He goes, "Are you coming with us to the Hollywood Bowl?" And I kind of looked over Rick Nielsen, because I figured he'd be the first to have to say yes or no, and he gave me a thumbs up. And Bunny had already told me he wanted me to come, and Tom had already told me he wanted me to come. So that was just a thrilling moment. So 2 years in a row we did that. I got to play with him at the Hollywood Bowl, and then it turned into a thing at in Las Vegas. We played the Hilton for a while, and then to Paris. So that was, and by that time I'd left the job at the Hall of Fame, and it was just back to being a lowly musician again. And but it was really great fun getting to play Beatles songs with Cheap Trick, and even more to get to play Cheap Trick songs with Cheap Trick.
Yeah.
At the end of the performances, they would do a set of theirs, and to still be up there with them and playing along was great fun.
Wow. Well, and that's, I mean, they've finally gotten the acclaim that they deserve with this Hall of Fame induction. But man, that's just a great classic band, that's for sure.
I love them. I think they're great. I think Robin's one of the best rock singers ever. He and Paul Rodgers can hold the trophy of number one together, I think. For my money. Stand in Roger Daltrey's kitchen and say that.
Well, it's definitely interesting to look at the things you've done and the people you've been involved with in addition to, continuing to create, some great records. I mean, I love that 2014. Is it set? Is that, or the reset? I guess, is that what it's called?
I went back up. What I'd done is it had been 20 years since I put out a record called Set to Pop.
Yeah.
And out of all my solo records, Set to Pop probably got the most attention. At the time, it was a stereo review album of the year at one point, and it sold pretty well and got a good bit of attention. So I figured, well, if everyone celebrates their 20th anniversary of things, I had a bunch of alternate versions and live versions already sort of sitting around. I thought, well, if I just re-record a few of the others, I'll have a little disc that's like a 20th anniversary, look back, and so there'll be new versions, there'll be live versions and demo versions, and of all the same songs.
Well, yeah, I really like the stripped down versions of some of those. I Went Electric, and some of those. I mean, they really kind of bring out some different things.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you took the time to listen. I appreciate that.
Well, I mean, how can you not? There's just a number. I mean, you've just made great records for, I guess it's been 30 years now, hasn't it? I got to go lie down now. Break that news to you.
I got to go lie down now. I got tired all of a sudden.
But thanks for spending some time with me, Bill. I've enjoyed it, and
well, Dale, I appreciate it.
I appreciate your time, and I've had a good time talking to you.
All right. Have a good rest of the day.
All right. You too. Thanks. I hope you enjoyed my interview with Bill Lloyd. Visit him at billlloydmusic.net. Visit me at dalewiley.show.net. Throw some money, buy some books. Copyright 2016.